Hey everybody, welcome to the Whole Elephant. I want to start today just by, thank you to those of you who reached out about our guest last week, David Hayward, Naked Pastor. He had some great things to say, and I think it started some really cool conversations. So thank you for diving in and making that meaningful dialogue happen afterwards. Today, my guest is someone who, in my development as an artist, as someone who loves music and all these things, this person played an integral role in that process for me. My guest is Tyrone Wells. He's a singer, songwriter here in Southern California. And when I was in college, Tyrone was a big deal at my college. He'd come play a lot, and he had a weekly gig in a town close by that I just became obsessed with. And I realized along the way that his music is incredible. His voice is amazing. He writes great songs. But really what I was drawn to was his ability to tell story through music. He, at his core, was a storyteller. And you can tell he's a storyteller because he's one of the masters at gab. You know, the stuff you say in between songs in a concert. He always has the crowd rolling. He always has the crowd crying. He's just really a master at the storytelling he does in his concerts. And so it's no surprise that storytelling translates also into his music. And I was just obsessed with it. I loved it so much. So I wanted to bring on Tyrone to talk about the music industry and what's going on with COVID and how he's been able, as an independent artist, to kind of carve out this niche in the industry and have a really successful career. And so I hope you enjoy this time that I had with Tyrone. Enjoy the chat. Tyrone, what's up, man?
Hey, dude, great to see you.
Welcome to the Whole Elephant. My little podcast here that we're trying to get going.
I love it.
Dude, it's been a long time.
I know it's been a really long time, but there were times when we would see each other often.
When I was single and living the college life and I had all the time in the world and I wasn't married and had a daughter, I would go to every Tyrone Wells show that there ever was. But those times have changed.
I love that.
How are you?
I feel like I am only halfway at every Tyrone Wells show because so like once you have a family and stuff, it's just hard to be totally present someplace new. Your part of your heart and mind is always back with the fam, you know?
Yeah. How are you surviving COVID lockdowns? Okay. I know you have 3 little ones running around the house.
Yeah. And we just moved. So we moved from Chino, California to San Clemente, California, which is in a different county in Orange County.
And so they're going to school?
Yes.
Yeah.
So amazing.
I have a really good friend that just made that move too.
What's that?
I have a really good friend that just made that exact same move to San Clemente. And that was a big reason why he wanted his kids to be able to finish high school going to school.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's been a very positive move for us. So very happy.
Awesome. How are you tired of Zoom writing sessions and all that? How's that been going?
Yeah, you can't. There's no substitute for being in the room. You know what I mean? But I will say, it is really remarkable and amazing technology now that I can write with my friends in Cleveland or in Nashville, even doing some sessions where with the ability to screen share, like I'm actually singing vocals and then my buddies in Cleveland are running the session.
Yeah,
it's amazing. You know, I'm actually singing and he's running the session right there and we're getting keeper vocals, and it's, that's amazing. Just the fact that I can stay home and accomplish that.
Yeah. So Christmas time here at the church, I wrote a song for Christmas.
Nice.
We recorded rhythm section and vocals, all isolated here in LA. And then we recorded a 22-piece string section in Macedonia. and I was at East West Studios in Hollywood. They had a direct link. We were linked in with the conductor. We were doing all that stuff. And if you
Wow.
ever need strings on the cheap, they're incredible, and it's a really cool way to do it. So Macedonia,
Wow.
that's where you do it now, apparently. But just the
This is
technology was mind blowing.
that is unbelievable. You're talking about a live string section,
Yes.
not somebody just sitting at a keyboard pounding it out.
22 live players, and they were there. The point was to make it a music video for our Christmas Eve service, to be able to do a cool thing for the online service.
Right.
So they had 2 roaming 4K cameras that were filming them play it, so that I could use footage from here, use footage from there, and put together a song. It was pretty cool.
That's unbelievable.
But like, it's just mind blowing. That's recent that you would be able to direct link in with 22 Macedonians and do something cool like that, you know?
Yeah, that's next level for sure. That's unbelievable.
Super cool. Let's go back to the beginning, man. When was music a thing for you?
Really young, probably junior high is when I started thinking that I just loved to sing. And I had some friends that were also singers, and actually wrote some songs when I was in junior high with one of my good buddies who has gone on to be on Broadway and stuff. But yeah,
Really? Who's that?
his name is Brandon O'Neill.
Cool.
And he's always been so crazy talented. So he's done big productions in like Seattle, and then he made his way to Broadway, and he's like one of the most talented guys I know. But yeah, so that's when it's kind of, at least the bug bit me a little bit, like, but I didn't know anybody that made music for a living or anything. So that seemed like not very realistic. I never really thought of it in terms like that. It was just something I loved to do. And then once I got into high school, I ended up in a metal band.
Yes.
And that was really funny. We had killer mullets, and we were, that was kind of my first introduction to recording. Really valuable experiences there, writing and practicing in a garage, and then starting to record. And
yeah, what was that band name?
We had a couple different names. We were Axis, and then we were Axiom. Nice. And I actually, one of the guys sent me one of the recordings just recently, and I was actually pretty impressed with, because we were using ADATs. I don't even know if you remember ADATs, but that was like, it was old recording equipment that was basically like the next level up from a little 4-track recorder that you would do on like a tape. It was
sure.
It's old school, but it was cool to hear those recordings that we made when I was like 17. But that's really where I think it started being like, wow, I think I could, if I could figure this out. I really love this. I love to record. I love to write. And then when I went to college, I left Spokane, Washington, where I grew up. And once I got into college, I thought I was leaving the whole music thing kind of behind me, and I was going to do work at a church as a youth minister. That was kind of my plan, to go study, like get a degree and do that for a job. And then I met some other musicians. And once we started writing music again, I was like, I don't know if I can do anything other than this. I just love it too much.
Yeah.
So that's where
Sky Park came from.
Yeah, that's where Sky Park came from, and that was great. We were playing a lot, and ended up signing a deal with a Nashville label, and called Word Records, and we did a couple records with them, and that's, I think, at that point was like, okay, if we can make enough noise to sign a record deal with some company that's all the way all the way across the United States, and then I think maybe I could do this, and I really really started to think positively about, okay, I'm gonna make a career out of making music. And
we're gonna probably talk a lot about record labels throughout your career, on and off of them. What was that first experience being on Word record labels?
Well,
There was no
It's
alternative. That's what you had at that point.
yeah. It's funny because um, a friend of mine, my manager now, Mark, says um, there there's always like a congratulatory phone call the day that you sign a deal and the day that you are done with your deal. It's like another reason to celebrate. So it's like it's funny because even artists like Taylor Swift, who as big as it gets, is like just aching to get off the label, and
Yeah.
it's like it's strange, but you think you really want that, and I think it's all part of the process probably for most artists. And even when I don't know, it's funny because even now when I think of a record label, I'm a little bit like, that might be good, that might be good, because they have muscle that you just don't have as an indie.
Yeah.
um, and so I don't know. It's my experience with Word wasn't negative. I would say that it was generally positive. I think that I'm not the brooding artist type that gets all bent out of shape. I know that at the end of the day, it comes down to dollars and cents for a business, and
Sure.
they're looking at whatever is their best shot. And so for me, it was like we signed a couple of deals, and all my deals have been this way. Honestly, I've signed with Word and with Universal Republic, and I've done 4 major label records. And every time, I'm super hopeful that we have that one song that just goes ballistic. And I've never had that experience. I've had songs that are like quasi hits, like
Yeah.
they've done their thing, and there's been a lot of momentum around some of the songs that I've been a part of writing, but it's never been like that ballistic, crazy experience, and that's
Right.
okay. It's a lot of times I think that type of song is a blessing and a curse for an artist, because sometimes it becomes their only calling card, and it can be great and also be a real bummer, because I remember Augustana. Do you remember Augustana?
Oh, heck
I was
yeah.
playing a show with them at a college in the East Coast, and he mentioned that they have to play it last because people will just leave after they play it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
How discouraging is that? It's
Yeah,
like we're not
totally.
just this one song. Um, so
Well,
yeah,
not to mention styles change. And so if
yeah,
you wrote a hit song 20 years ago and people know that that's your style, why would they want you to write a song now? You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, right. It also traps you in a certain time. Yeah, that's true. So it's that's why it's pretty amazing when you have artists that have that kind of staying power, that just keep writing songs that are hits throughout their whole career. I mean, that is
Yeah.
no joke, and that's not. I think that's a very unique thing.
Right.
Um, but I think for me, being on a label was exhilarating. It was fun. It was high hopes, and then sometimes like discouragement.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was hanging out with my buddy Dave Barnes, and he was on Razor and Tie at the time, and I came over to. It was actually the first time I met him, and we had talked on the phone and stuff, but we were actually hanging out, and so I was talking to him, and he just was so down, and he was bummed, and it was really, I'm like, dude, I just really think you're in a label funk right now, because when you're on a label, you're made to feel like you're failing. But let me
Mm.
tell you, bro, like, it's good to be Dave Barnes. I think everybody I know
Yeah.
would trade their life with you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they love what you do. They love who you are. They love the music you make. And I think you're just in a funk because of that one relationship with the label has got
Right.
you feeling a certain type of way.
Right.
And
Right.
I think when I would go to the label, it was funny because I remember one time my manager was like, don't walk in there with your tail tucked between your legs, because it's not selling like you thought or hoped that it would sell.
Yeah.
um, and it's that's true. You just have this kind of like, oh, you walk in and
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, I know you guys took this shot on me, and it didn't pan out maybe like what they thought. But actually, for me, that still was it was a positive thing for my career, because it did up my profile and it did get me a broader audience and
Right.
more access. And
Right.
so, I can't speak for them. I think that it's funny, because I always am like, well, if we would have had, the right song, then the rest would be history.
Right.
But I just don't. I look at some of my friends that have had that song and have experienced that thing, and I can honestly say I don't think my life would be better if,
Right.
maybe I'd have more money in the bank, but it wouldn't make my life better.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
and
Well,
the real talk here, I said this prayer many times in my life. God, if um, if success means that I lose my marriage or lose my faith, I don't want it. Like that type of mad success, So protect me, and
yeah.
and keep me from things that would wreck my marriage or would wreck my relationship with my belief or trust in you. And
Right.
so, I don't even, maybe the music just wasn't good enough and it doesn't matter. That wasn't me. but that, I feel like in a way I've kind of just offered that up, and I believe
Right.
that my life is beautiful, and I'm able to get by and even thrive making
Right.
music, and not, you know
Right. Well, first of all, I was at a wedding a couple months ago, and the guy who's like singing during the wedding, I'm like, okay, this is like their worship pastor who's like a Dave Barnes wannabe, right? And like he's singing a Dave Barnes song, and like, okay, whatever. And I go through the
God
whole
gave me
night.
you. Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Which I've sung at like 5 weddings also, of course. And so the whole night goes, and I'm, I keep seeing him like at the reception and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And at the end of the night, someone goes, it was so cool that they got Dave Barnes to come play their wedding. I was like, wait, that was Dave Barnes? Like, I thought it was. So I wasted like a whole night where I could have been like talking and hanging out with Dave Barnes. They were like super rich, so like of course they paid whatever it cost to get Dave Barnes to fly out to California to play your wedding. But that was
That's
ridiculous.
awesome.
You've also I think we've both have had friends that have gone on and off record labels, and the stories that you hear out of that. You've also had friends that like went the American Idol, The Voice route. I think of like Tony Lucca, Angel Taylor,
Mhm.
people that I saw play shows with you went that route. Was that ever a thought? Was that ever something that you thought about doing?
I think we just kind of looked at the track record for those people that we knew that did that, and we always felt like it wasn't really anything that helped them out.
Yeah.
And so we had offers from The Voice and from different things like that that asked us to come and be a part of it, or me to come and sing. But I never thought, honestly, that kind of pressure, I don't like it.
Mm,
I think I could cave in with people judging me when I'm trying to sing. That's just not my type of vibe.
right.
I would honestly be very nervous in that situation. And then I
Yeah, but
just,
if you went up there and sang Ain't No Sunshine, all those chairs would turn around. You know
yeah,
that though. You know
maybe,
that though. Come on.
maybe. But I think when I looked at like the aftermath of even Tony, who took, I think, third place or something, and he got a
Yeah.
record deal and did it with Adam. It still didn't really. It helped him out for about a year or two, and then it didn't. It wasn't really something that changed his reality that much. So, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know.
The the
Who
voice
knows?
is designed to strengthen the careers of the judges, not necessarily the contestants, it seems.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah. I wanted to jump into, I'm talking about, the American Idol route, those sorts of things that the young artists now kind of grew up with those things in existence, right? And
Hmm.
I feel like when I see young artists now, they fall into the trap of kind of that instant fame.
Hmm.
Uh, and that mixed with the technology that they can be in their rooms, recording and writing albums. Uh, I feel like I have a lot of friends in bands that never perform. that sit in their rooms trying to make the perfect song instead of getting out there. And your story is kind of the exact opposite of that. If we go back to like after Sky Park days, you like basically said no to no gigs. I've seen you play at coffee shops. I've seen you at the Orange County swap meet. Like you took the road of like grinding it out, creating a following. Like, what was it in you? Why did you decide to make that decision when you were doing it?
Yeah, I think for me it was just the way forward. The only way I understood like how to be heard was to get out there and play. And I knew that I had a pretty good, like if I could get up in front of people and play my songs and tell some stories and just for them to kind of hear my heart, my spirit, my songs, that it would turn into them coming back and buying a ticket someplace else. And so I just decided to play as much as I could because I was feeling that type of encouragement from those gigs.
Mm.
And then also there's just an element of there's no substitute for playing your songs over and over and over again and just getting really comfortable inside your songs. And still even now when I release a new record, I get kind of bummed because I work really hard on the songs, I record them, and then I might play them on that following tour. And then, then I'll play just a couple of them going forward.
Right.
And that's kind of, it's just different than when I first started out and I was playing live so much at so many different type of gigs. I really crawled inside those songs and knew them so well and played them all the time. And, I think, I had probably two or at one point like three standing gigs where every Thursday night I was at this place and every Monday night I was at this place and every Wednesday night I was at this place, and it'd be a weekly gig.
Yeah.
And I just think that was really valuable for cutting my teeth with the crowd and also just playing those songs over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, that's when I found your music, obviously. It's crazy. I'm sitting in my office at Montrose Church right now, where I'm the worship pastor. I've been here for 15 years. I literally wouldn't be sitting here without Thursday nights at McLean's.
Really?
Like because I mean, going back to my college days, I was football guy. I had spent my whole life playing football. I was getting a PE degree at Azusa Pacific. I was going to be a football coach. Those Thursday nights, I fell in love with the idea of songwriting. I fell in love with music. The way that you told stories through music, I realized I fell in love with storytelling in general.
Mm.
Those those nights, that I can't understate it. That's a big reason of why I even kept playing my guitar. I literally was just trying to emulate you for a long time.
Oh man.
Even when I got to Montrose, do you understand the importance for people of those days, or was you just like, every Thursday night I'm rolling up in my beat up station wagon, getting my gear
Man.
out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, I guess you can only really see your experience through your own eyes. And
Yeah.
and it is funny, like those nights I'm loading in my own little PA and I'm setting up and I'm working so hard for this. I'm making hardly any money. And those nights, it's amazing for me to hear that from you, from your perspective, because I can't tell you. I mean, it seemed like probably years that I had that gig, and so many nights I'd be like, is this all this is? And I'm of course seeing it through my eyes. Is this all this is? Am I just going to be like this guy that like loads into this little tiny coffee shop every Thursday night for the next 10 years? Like,
Yeah.
wow. But then
with the lady yelling at us all to buy drinks because
yes,
we would go in
there. Oh my gosh, you would get so pissed at people,
so angry.
But I see it, I see it now. It was like it was a little scene, it would be so packed in there that she wasn't making any money. It's just like wall to wall people and no one's buying anything. But it was such a tiny space, dude. But anyways, I mean, that's amazing. And I thank you for telling me that, because I do feel like sometimes I forget that. And
Yeah.
I know that I still run into people all the time. They're like, I'm an original. I would come see you play at McLean's, and I'm like, what? It's so great. You know, that's really like, that's magic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Did you ever, was there ever a thought of going the CCM route or even the church route, since that's kind of like what you were thinking moving down to Southern California?
You mean like working at a church, or you mean like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there was a time when I was doing that right out of college,
Mm.
and even still, like, I'd have people drop hints. Like, I've gone to some churches and they would say like, yeah, I don't think, you know, they would kind of just drop a hint that like, we're looking for someone to come, and I would always think like, man, that'd be cool, but um for me, I think the joy and the enjoyment in music is typically writing and performing the stuff that I've written. And so it wasn't always the right fit, because I
Right.
just feel like it, and I actually do really love leading worship though. But I just felt like uh, if I was really focused on that, it would kind of take my eye off the ball in terms of doing the thing that I really love, which is
Yeah,
writing.
for sure. And when you're bent towards writing, like when you really boil down what worship leading is, like you're the lead singer of like a pretty good cover band.
Right.
That I mean, after Sunday, you have a weekly cover band gig. That's kind of essentially what it is.
Right.
And so I could see why that wouldn't fit. So we've talked a lot about, coffee shops and being on and off labels and stuff. Let's fast forward to today, because through that whole story, you're very successful, and I'm talking financially, because you found a little niche in the sync world that seems to be the thing that really took off for you.
Yeah.
This podcast is the whole elephant, trying to see all sides, and I think a lot of people don't understand really what the sync world is. Can you give us just like a basic understanding of what that is?
Yeah, so I mean, with so much media content coming at us from all angles, almost all that stuff needs music. If it's, if it's video, if it's film, and so basically they're all looking for music, and a lot of times they're looking for a very specific type of sound and a type of feel, and so they're so that's what sync is. It's like it used to be that like it would be just some guy with a little keyboard cranking out like or whatever, who knows. But
Yeah.
it wasn't really tailor made for TV and film, like I think it's becoming now. And so just to talk a little bit about what I've been doing, as they're kind of side projects still,
Yeah.
but they are my main source of income now. Is creating content that would play well on TV and film for a number of different things. Usually we write like songs, we write whole songs, and they're bands that people probably would never actually know, that originally they kind of came together to write these songs that would be like really great for whatever type of BMW commercial, or the NFL has been using stuff that we've been writing like crazy, which has been really fun because I like to watch football, and I'm like, hey, that's me. I hear that all the time. So
yeah, it's kind of trippy though, because I'll be watching like a college football thing and they're going to commercial, and I'm like, hold up, that's Tyrone's voice, because that's unmistakably Tyrone's voice, but that's not a Tyrone Wells song, and I don't think he would ever sing that on his own album. You know what I mean? Like there's like, it's usually like a lot of hubris that you wouldn't usually write. Like,
yes.
but you're literally just writing hooks that that college football sync wants.
Yeah. And I get to kind of play a character. I love that whole side of writing where you write from a different perspective. And so a lot of times when I'm writing from that perspective, I'm just thinking I am a badass, and I'm just singing from that perspective. Which is actually really fun for me, because I'm like, I'm a preacher's kid that was taught humility, and I never try to say anything that is, I don't like it when people talk the way that I'm writing songs, like from that perspective of just being like, look at me kind of, but
Yeah.
in TV and film, that's really what a lot of those little placements, it makes sense to have that perspective. So it's
Like,
fun. It's been fun for me to write from that, from that
yeah.
perspective. It's fun.
Was there a moment that you, and I suppose Mark is your manager too, was there a moment that you realized, hey, we need to start doing this? These checks I'm getting from Sync are the kind of the way to go here.
Um, yes and no. I mean, honestly, a lot of, yeah, I mean, internally, me, because I have a family and I don't love leaving and touring for 3 months. Yes, definitely. Like, I thought this is a path forward for me where I can still be creative and enjoy what I'm doing, but not be gone as much. And I can, I have 3 daughters, and they're growing up so fast. And every time I would leave, when I would come back home, I'd just be kind of in tears about, I don't know. It would usually hit me first day or two back, where I would feel like just sad that I had missed, these times. So, yeah, when I realized, like, wow, I can go hole up for a couple weeks with a producer, create this content, and then have checks rolling in the mail. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
and it's a lot easier to do in quarantine. I mean, you got to feel super blessed that this is something a lot easier than creating your own album that then needs to be toured and stuff.
Right. Yep. And I've done some, I had one of my projects is called Royal Deluxe. I got to tell you a funny story about Royal Deluxe. I was in Indianapolis, and a couple guys afterwards. One of the guys I knew, and I hadn't seen him for a while, named Aaron Pelsu, and he was there, and we talked afterwards. I was like, I recognize that guy, but it's been so long. It had been like 10 years since I had seen him, and I had actually come to his church in Florida, like way back in the day. So we were talking, and he had brought a friend with him that was a guitarist, and they had been at my show. And I was just talking, and I could tell the other guy was like, yeah, this isn't really my type of thing, but, good show. That was cool. And, I was doing my singer-songwriter thing. And so we're talking over tacos afterwards. And I'm starting to tell Aaron, like, yeah, I'm doing these other side projects. It's been so much fun. And like, it's been lighting me up. It's so fun. And so I tell him, I'm like, one of them's called Royal Deluxe. And his friend almost fell out of the seat. He was like, wait, Royal Deluxe is you? I'm like, yeah, Royal Deluxe is one of my side projects. And he's like, shut up. And because he loves the band, loved the band, and knew all the music, and it was informing some of his writing. And
so people are clear, Royal Deluxe is you singing with the band Welshly Arms, just creating sync music. This is not
yes and no. I mean, because you never know what can happen with that music. You know what I mean? Like, something weird could happen, and we would have an opportunity to go play it live here or there. But it is interesting. As of now, that band has never played live. We've been in the room. It's me and Jimmy and Sam. And the three of us, we hit. I knew Sam. It was pretty organic because I knew Sam from way back in the day. There was an artist named Kate Vogel that was opening for me on tour, and Sam was her music director. And so we hit it off then. And then again, when he became the guitarist for Stephen Kellogg and the Sixers, he was playing guitar for them.
I did not know that he was part of Stephen Kellogg and the Sixers. That's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So he was playing guitar for them. So we had a friendship that spanned years and years and years. And so, when Mark, who was my drummer during all that time, knew Sam really well too, when he started working with Sam's project Welshly Arms, that's when he kind of was like, man, it'd be awesome if you and Sam and Jimmy got together and wrote some music, and we could see what happened with it,
Yeah.
And so I think the funny thing is like, the majority of the people that come upon that music have no idea of the origins of it. It's just a cool band that they like, because the music is not just jingles. It's like full verses, full bridges,
Right.
And we're writing complete songs, and thinking like, this is a real band. Like, we're writing great music, and I would say probably 99% of the people that know Royal Deluxe just think it's a band out there that they dig,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
it is. I mean, but it just hasn't toured.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, younger Tyrone had hopes and dreams of what your music career would look like. And it probably did not look like how life is now.
Right.
Do you now consider yourself successful? And how has your definition of success changed from when you were younger?
What a great question, Eric. It is. That's a great question. Yeah. Okay. So I definitely think I'm successful. And it doesn't look like maybe what I thought it would look like, but I think it might be better, honestly. Because I think once if as an artist, if you become a bit of a household name, then there's a lot of pressure to just create and go and make money with the people that you work with. Right. Because your success and your continued pushing kind of pays their life. Right. So I don't, I can't say that. It's funny because, of course, I still would love to experience kind of that household name thing. I think I would, but I'm not. I'm very happy where I'm at, and I'm happy to be able to create so much music. That's one thing that has been the best is, as a singer-songwriter releasing records, you can release like a record a year or so, and a lot of those songs just fall by the wayside. You might write 50 songs and only 10 of them see the light of day. And right. With this other thing, I'm releasing so much music that I'm a part of creating and writing, and they're all seeing the light of day, and they're in a different genre, and they have a different chance to kind of fly. And so, yeah, I would definitely say I think that I'm successful, but it's not how I thought it would look. And I think it's probably better.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that answer.
I love it too, and you asking it has helped me realize the truth of that. So thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, we gotta move on to talk a little bit about God and faith and all that. But I had an odd question, and it might be a question that's really dumb, and I edit out later. Are you into musical theater at all? Has that like ever been something that you've dabbled in? Because your writing is so storytelling that it feels like, because I've gotten really into musical theater like the last 15 years. It feels like that would be a good fit for you. Has that ever like been anything in your vision at all?
It hasn't, but I wouldn't. And
I say that specifically because the musical theater world is leaning way more pop songwriter vibes, and so that's why it came to my mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't count that out. I wasn't exposed to a lot of that growing up, or really, I think that I've gotten more into it since my wife had a history of doing that, like in high school, and she was in different plays, and then when I saw Hamilton, I was like, this is amazing. I really love that.
No, it's mind blowing. I mean,
it's
insane.
I mean, the music and the just how smart all that is. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I could see myself doing that at some point, if the right opportunity came along. And sure. I think it would have to definitely be like a collaborative thing. I'd be working with a producer that was helping with the music, and sure. Cause I like that. I like being just what they call in the business a top liner, where I'm more just writing melody and lyric and leaving most of the music to whoever I'm working with. Unless it's my solo stuff, a lot of times I feel like when that happens, it loses some of my own spirit. And so I do like it to start with an idea that I've had playing with my guitar. Sure. But yeah, that's a good question. I could see myself doing it.
It's always something I've wanted to ask you. So this podcast, a lot of it, why it came about was I felt like, especially with my faith journey, I was only seeing one part of the elephant. I needed to talk to people and experience how other people are going through life, especially since I've been at the same church for 15 years. I grew up
Wow.
in Glendale. I went all the way to Azusa, 20 miles away for college. Then I moved right back.
Yeah.
God, spirituality, faith, kind of open-ended. What has that meant to you during your life? How has that kind of interacted with your life?
Yeah, I think I've always believed in God and always wanted to seek him. I think I grew up as a preacher's kid, and I had a lot of very conservative upbringing, kind of strict conservative. Like I was sort of, it's kind of footloosey, like my reality. Like, I didn't even get to go to dances growing up. We didn't have a TV till I was like, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of dark ages, like didn't go to movies, just felt very like whenever at school they started talking about whatever was happening in pop culture, I would just feel like lost, like I wouldn't really know.
Mm.
And not that that's bad necessarily. And now as a parent, I'm like, yeah, it might be better for you not to know what's going on in pop culture.
Yeah.
But I also don't want my kids to feel so other, where
Mm.
they're not, at least know what's happening in the world. And also, I think faith looks different to me than it did. It looks very different than it did when I was being brought up in this ultra conservative kind of sectarian, which means kind of separatist, almost like set
Right.
ourselves apart and think that we know everything and everybody else doesn't know everything. That
Yeah.
that is a tired worldview to me,
Mhm.
and I'm not interested in people that feel like they have the corner on the market of
Did
faith.
you did you believe it when you were in it and then deconstructed later? Or was there always the twinge of like, this doesn't seem right to me?
A little of that, always a twinge, but also the deconstruction I think is still happening for me.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for certain voices that some people think are heretics or lunatics, or like your Rob Bell's. I really enjoy a lot of what he has to say, and I find myself like kind of agreeing mostly with a lot of his mindset.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's so, I mean, and I think for those of us that did grow up in the church, like hearing a perspective that's so refreshing and not so dogmatic, and is just like, whew, it's like water for the soul.
Right.
So but yeah, I mean, I think that I'm um that I think that if you're an honest seeker of God, I think that you'll be wrestling forever, honestly.
Mm.
Because if
Yeah.
you end up just being like, I know everything, then you're you're mistaken, and your
Yeah.
experience is a lot of what teaches you as well. And
Yeah. Someone I interviewed for this season 2 of my podcast was David Hayward, who goes by Naked Pastor online. I don't know if you're familiar with his work at all.
I
But
feel like
he,
I've seen some of his stuff come across like my Instagram feed.
yeah, his little cartoons and stuff. Uh, he's totally into deconstruction. And one of the things that I had a self realization while I was talking to him is I want to deconstruct, but then never reconstruct, because anything that I reconstruct is just going to be my version of what I deconstructed from what my parents told me. Like I want to live in a constant state where I'm always probing, where I'm always asking, where I'm always deconstructing my thoughts, because it would be ridiculous for me to think that in 2021 Eric McClenahan was given all the knowledge of God in the most perfect way, and that I could deconstruct and create something better. Also seems ridiculous. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. I think the part that feels wobbly about that is just like, when can I ever stand on anything?
No, totally.
You know? And
Yeah.
I think for me, it's deconstructed to the point of like, I believe in Jesus. I think that he was the Son of God, and I do believe that he died, was buried, and rose again, and that his basically the gospel, that his sacrifice saves me. and continues to save me. And it's not something that, I don't know. It's interesting because I think I mean, this is a rabbit hole, but yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in the church that is very judgmental and doesn't rest in that peace. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It makes me. I don't like. I think what I wrestle with a lot is the other, because I did grow up in such a small group that was like, we are the only ones that know the
Right.
truth.
Right.
And so I just think I bristle at that so much when I'm and I hear that type of a perspective. It's like, man, I don't know, that there's so much good in so much around us, and there's truth to be learned everywhere, not just,
Absolutely.
you know.
Well,
And so
if we believe it in a God that is constantly revealing himself to every human through nature, through love, through all these things, then there has to be God at work outside of Christianity, right?
right,
That seems very natural to me. But
right,
when
it's his world. He made this.
yeah, when you create extreme dogma and then you isolate yourselves from everybody, then you don't have to apply that dogma to actual living, breathing humans. And I think sometimes when we're raised in situations like that, then we go out and we go to college, or, we go into the music industry or whatever, and we see people that we would be considered others by our upbringing. And we go, wait a minute, there's so much joy, love, peace. I have to apply that dogma to this person, and I just can't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then that's where a lot of people go, okay, then screw faith. It doesn't work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and I've had those, and I think I'll continue to have those bigger questions. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm reading the Bible right now, and so much of it, I'm just like, this is crazy. This is so nuts. I just read the part where, like, do you remember when I'm gonna forget, but it's basically in Genesis where, like, the one of the, I think it was Jacob's daughter was raped by somebody, by a neighboring village.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy that raped her, he wanted to make her his wife, and so he came to the father, and they were a very powerful and wealthy, I guess, little village, and basically they negotiated the. I don't know if it was the brothers or the father said, the only way that we can do this is if you guys all get circumcised. Like, your whole village has to be circumcised. And I'm reading this, it's like the first time I remember, and these are all grown men. So they basically say, if you get circumcised, then we'll all intermarry and we can be like one big happy family. Yeah. And so then they agree to it because they see Jacob's wealth and everything that they have, and and all the marriable women. And then once these guys circumcise themselves, the brothers, I guess just a couple of the brothers, a day or two after these guys have all cut themselves, they go to the village and they kill everybody. they kill all the men, and they take the wives and the plunder.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And and it's also like, these are God's chosen people.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And part of it is like, it's weird, right? Because part of it's like, this is crazy. And also, like, dude, I've effed up a lot in my life, and God, I could still be a chosen person of God. Like, God is still on my side. And so anyways, but also it's just like, this seems so wrong. Like, if these are God's chosen people, how could he bless this? It's just like really strange,
Right. Well, I read the stories like that, not as this is who God was in that moment, but this is who they were interpreting God to be in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
the Old Testament, sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong, but they're stories of who they thought God was. And then we get the full revelation of who God is in Jesus.
Yeah.
So every story in the Old Testament has to be put to the test of, was Jesus like that?
Right.
That's
And
how
it
I justify those stories, at least.
yeah. Well, and just because it's in the Bible and it happened, if you believe, that it's historically sound, it doesn't necessarily mean that God blessed it, because it doesn't say God blessed this, but this is what these guys did,
Right.
and which actually I think is like this is humanity. We are flawed. We are selfish. We are murderous.
Yeah.
And that hasn't really changed much.
No, there's nothing new
So,
under the sun.
yeah.
Yeah. No, we in so many ways, Well, man, I so appreciate you doing this, taking the time to hang out with me. It'd been too long since I got to chat with you, and it felt really good to do it, man. I'm proud of you. I think it's so cool that I've kind of ridden the Tyrone Wells wave from the beginning, at least sort of from the beginning, and I think it's an inspiration. Should be an inspiration to everybody. Young artists should be looking at a dude like you going, I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to work hard, because that's how you got to where you are. And I think that's fantastic, man. I really appreciate you, brother. And I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, Eric. And it's an honor to be here with you. I think you're, this work that you're doing here could be a really meaningful thing for so many. And I love hearing your perspective. And thanks so much for being the only guy in the room in some of those shows, or at least one of them. It means a lot to me.
Yeah,
it means like more than you know, man. It means a lot.
All right, man. Thank you, brother.
All right. Take care.